She collapsed on a frozen sidewalk, 9 months pregnant and alone, while dozens of people walked past like she didn't exist. The man who stopped wasn't her husband. He wasn't her family. He was a stranger with steady hands and secrets buried so deep he'd forgotten how to let anyone close. But in that moment, when her body failed and her world shattered, he became the only person who refused to look away. This is the story of Maya Brooks, a woman who had to lose everything to discover what strength really meant, and the single father who understood that sometimes saving someone means simply choosing not to disappear. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop a comment with your city below and hit that like button so I can see how far Maya's story reaches. Now let's begin. The cold hit Maya Brooks like a physical blow the moment she stepped outside the apartment building. February in the city carried a particular cruelty. The kind of cold that found every gap in clothing, every vulnerable inch of exposed skin, and pressed down with merciless intent. She pulled her worn coat tighter around her swollen belly, but the fabric had stopped meeting in the middle 3 months ago. Now it hung open, useless, a reminder of all the things she couldn't afford to replace. The late afternoon sun offered no warmth, just pale winter light that made the gray buildings look even more lifeless. Maya's breath came out in visible clouds as she made her way down the sidewalk, one hand pressed against her lower back, where the ache had become a constant, grinding presence. 9 months pregnant, 2 weeks past her due date, and walking 6 blocks to the discount grocery store because Evan had taken the car again without asking. She should have been angry, should have called him and demanded he come back, drive her to the store, do something that resembled being a partner. But anger required energy Maya no longer possessed. Exhaustion had settled into her bones weeks ago, the kind that sleep couldn't touch. Every night she lay awake listening to Evan's easy breathing beside her, wondering how he could rest so peacefully while she carried the weight of their coming child in every cell of her body. The baby shifted inside her, a rolling movement that pressed against her ribs and made her pause mid-step. Maya's hand moved instinctively to the spot, rubbing in small circles the way she'd done 1,000 times before. "I know," she whispered to her daughter. "I know you're ready. I am too." The sidewalk stretched ahead, crowded with people moving with the focused determination of those who had places to be. Businessmen in sharp suits rushed past, clutching briefcases and phones. Women in designer coats strode by on heels that clicked against the pavement with confident precision. Students with headphones created their own private worlds, eyes down on screens, oblivious to everything around them. Maya felt invisible among them, just another obstacle to navigate around, another person taking up space in their efficient trajectories. Her lower back seized with sudden, sharp pain that made her gasp and stumble. She caught herself against a storefront window, palm pressed flat against the cold glass, and breathed through the contraction. Because that's what it was. She'd been having them on and off all morning, but she'd convinced herself they were just more Braxton Hicks contractions. Practice contractions, false labor, nothing real. Just her body rehearsing for an event it had been preparing for since the moment of conception. But this pain felt different, deeper, more insistent. Maya straightened slowly and kept walking. The grocery store was only 4 more blocks. She could make it 4 more blocks. She'd spent the last 9 months pushing through discomfort and fear and doubt. 4 more blocks was nothing. Another contraction hit before she'd gone half a block. This one drove her to her knees. The sidewalk was filthy, scattered with old snow turned gray with dirt, cigarette butts, and the indefinable grime that accumulated in cities. Maya didn't care. She couldn't stand. Her hands splayed against the cold concrete while her body locked up with pain that seemed to radiate from her core outward, consuming everything else. She heard herself make a sound, something between a moan and a cry, that she barely recognized as her own voice. People kept walking. Through the haze of pain, Maya watched shoes pass by. Expensive leather boots, worn sneakers, high heels, work boots. They stepped around her like she was debris, something to avoid rather than acknowledge. A woman's voice, sharp with annoyance, said something about blocking the sidewalk but didn't stop. A teenager laughed, actually laughed, and Maya heard the artificial shutter sound of a phone camera. The contraction began to ease, leaving her shaking and gasping on the ground. Maya tried to push herself up, but her arms trembled with the effort. The baby pressed down with crushing weight, and she felt wetness between her legs. For a horrible moment, she thought her water had broken right there on the sidewalk, but when she looked down, she saw blood. Not a lot, but enough to send ice-cold fear racing through her veins. "Help!" The word came out barely louder than a whisper. Maya tried again, forcing volume into her voice. "Please, someone help me." A businessman swerved around her without breaking stride. A couple crossed to the other side of the street. A delivery driver glanced her way, hesitated for a fraction of a second, then kept walking. Maya felt tears burn hot against her frozen cheeks. This couldn't be happening. She couldn't be in labor, alone, on a city sidewalk with her baby in danger, while dozens of people treated her like she didn't exist. This was supposed to be different. She was supposed to be at home, with Evan driving her calmly to the hospital, with nurses and doctors ready and waiting. She was supposed to feel prepared and supported and safe. Instead, she was alone. Completely, terrifyingly alone. Another contraction began building. Maya felt it coming like a wave gathering force, and panic clawed at her throat. She couldn't do this again, couldn't survive another minute of this pain while people stepped over her like garbage. "Please," she sobbed, reaching out blindly toward the passing crowd. "Please, my baby." Her hand caught fabric, a jacket sleeve. She gripped it with desperate strength, not caring who it belonged to, just needing someone, anyone, to stop. The person attached to the sleeve did stop, immediately. "Easy." The voice was male, quiet, and utterly calm. "I've got you." Maya looked up through tears and saw a man crouching beside her. He wore jeans and a worn black jacket, with a backpack slung over one shoulder. His face was angular, with dark hair and eyes that assessed her with focused intensity. He couldn't have been more than 35, but something in his expression made him seem older, the kind of weathered awareness that came from seeing too much. "I'm in labor," Maya gasped. "I think something's wrong." How far apart are the contractions? He was already shrugging off his backpack, setting it down beside her with careful precision. They just started, maybe 15 minutes? When did your water break?" "It didn't, but I'm bleeding. Not a lot, but okay." His hands moved to her wrist, fingers pressing against her pulse point with professional certainty. "I need you to breathe for me. Slow, deep breaths. In through your nose, out through your mouth." Maya tried to obey, but another contraction was building. She felt it tightening like a vice around her middle, and she gripped the stranger's arm hard enough to hurt. "It's coming! Oh God, it's coming!" "I know. Look at me." He waited until her eyes met his. "You're going to get through this contraction. You've already gotten through the others, and you'll get through this one. Breathe with me. In." He demonstrated, his own breath slow and controlled. And out. Something about his certainty cut through Maya's panic. She breathed in, matching his rhythm, and felt the contraction crest and begin to recede. Not gone. The pain was still there, enormous and overwhelming, but survivable. "Good," the man said. He was checking her over with quick, efficient movements that spoke of medical training. "My name is Caleb. I'm going to call an ambulance, and I'm going to stay with you until it gets here. You're not alone anymore." Those last 4 words broke something open in Maya's chest. She nodded, unable to speak past the sob lodged in her throat. Caleb already had his phone out, dialing with one hand while keeping the other on her shoulder, a steady, grounding presence. "Yes, I need an ambulance at the corner of 5th and Morrison. Woman in active labor, approximately 39 weeks pregnant, experiencing contractions every 10 to 15 minutes with some vaginal bleeding. Possible complications. She needs immediate transport." He listened to the response, his expression unchanging. "No, I'm not family. I'm a bystander with medical training. The ambulance needs to arrive within 5 minutes, or I'll need additional support." He rattled off his credentials so quickly, Maya barely caught them. Something about emergency medicine and trauma certification. People were starting to notice now. A small crowd had gathered at a careful distance, phones out, watching but not helping. Maya felt the weight of their stares and wanted to disappear, wanted to fold in on herself until she was small enough to vanish entirely. But Caleb shifted his position, blocking her from their view with his body. "Ignore them," he said quietly. "Focus on me." Another contraction hit. This one was worse, sharper, more intense, lasting longer than the others. Maya heard herself cry out, a raw sound of pain and fear that echoed off the surrounding buildings. "That's okay," Caleb said. His voice never changed, never wavered from that steady calm. "You don't have to be quiet. Let it out. Your body knows what to do." "I'm scared," Maya gasped when she could speak again. What if something's wrong with the baby? "We're going to get you to the hospital. They'll check the baby, make sure everything is okay." Caleb glanced up the street, scanning for the ambulance. "How long have you been having any kind of contractions, including the practice ones?" "A few weeks, but they weren't regular. I thought—" Maya's voice cracked. "I thought I had more time." "Babies come on their own schedule." Something flickered across Caleb's face. Memory, maybe, or recognition. "Did you walk here? Where were you going?" "Grocery store. 6 blocks. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Alone?" Maya nodded, shame washing over her. She should have made Evan come with her, should have insisted, should have been less understanding about his need for the car, his irritation at her constant requests for help. But saying any of that out loud to the stranger felt like admitting failure, like confirming what she'd suspected for months, that she was handling this pregnancy alone in every way that mattered. "Is there someone I can call for you?" Caleb asked. "The baby's father? Family?" "My boyfriend, Evan." Maya fumbled for her phone, hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped it. "He has the car. He'll come." She managed to pull up Evan's number and hit call. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, then voicemail. "Evan, it's me. I'm in labor. I'm on 5th Street near Morrison. There's an ambulance coming. Please, I need you. Call me back." She ended the call and stared at the screen, willing it to light up with his return call. It stayed dark. "He's probably at work," Maya said, though she wasn't sure she believed it. Evan had been laid off 2 months ago. He spent most days on the couch, scrolling through job listings he never applied to, complaining about how the system was rigged against people like him. "He'll call back." Caleb didn't comment. He was watching her with those steady, assessing eyes, and Maya had the unsettling feeling he could see straight through her rationalizations to the truth beneath. The ambulance arrived with sirens wailing, pulling up to the curb in a flash of lights and urgency. 2 paramedics emerged, a woman with her hair pulled back in a tight bun and a younger man carrying a medical kit. "We've got a pregnant woman in active labor," the woman said, moving toward them with swift efficiency. "How far along?" "Approximately 39 weeks, contractions 10 to 15 minutes apart. Some vaginal bleeding," Caleb reported, stepping back to give them room. "She's been on her feet, walked several blocks before collapse." The paramedics went to work immediately, asking Maya questions while checking her vital signs and preparing her for transport. Everything became a blur of movement and voices and hands touching her with clinical efficiency. They lifted her onto a stretcher, strapped her in, began wheeling her toward the ambulance. Maya looked back and saw Caleb standing on the sidewalk, backpack in hand, watching but not following. Panic surged through her. "Wait, don't leave." She didn't know why she said it. This man was a stranger who had done more than anyone could reasonably expect. He had no obligation to follow her to the hospital, to stay with her through whatever came next. But the thought of facing this alone again, of arriving at the hospital with no one who cared whether she lived or died, was more terrifying than the physical pain tearing through her body. The female paramedic glanced at Caleb. "You coming?" He hesitated. Maya saw the calculation in his eyes, measuring obligation against whatever personal boundaries he'd drawn for himself. Then he nodded once and climbed into the ambulance behind the stretcher. Inside the ambulance, the world narrowed to pain and pressure and fear. The paramedics worked around Maya with practiced coordination, starting an IV line, monitoring the baby's heartbeat, asking questions she struggled to answer through the contractions that came faster now, overlapping until she couldn't tell where one ended and the next began. "I need to check for dilation," the female paramedic said. "Maya, can you hear me? I need to examine you." Maya nodded, beyond embarrassment now. Modesty had evaporated somewhere between collapsing on the sidewalk and being loaded into this ambulance. She felt hands, pressure, discomfort that barely registered against the larger pain consuming her. "She's at 7 centimeters, the paramedic announced. "Baby's coming fast." 7 centimeters. Maya's scattered knowledge of labor told her that meant she was in active labor, past the point of any kind of epidural or pain management. This baby was coming whether she was ready or not. "I can't do this," she heard herself say. "I can't. It's too fast. I'm not ready." "Yes, you can." Caleb's voice cut through her panic. He'd positioned himself near her head, out of the paramedic's way, but close enough that she could see his face. "You're already doing it. You've been doing it this whole time." "But I'm alone." The truth of it hit her with crushing force. She was about to have the baby with no partner beside her, no family waiting at the hospital, nothing but strangers doing their jobs. "I'm completely alone." "No," Caleb said quietly. "You're not." Another contraction seized her, worse than all the others combined. Maya felt pressure like nothing she'd ever experienced, a force that seemed to split her apart from the inside. She screamed, couldn't help it, couldn't hold it back. "Maya, listen to me." The female paramedic was at her side, voice sharp with urgency. "Your baby's heart rate is dropping. We need to get you to the hospital now, but if things get worse, we might need to deliver here. Do you understand?" Horror crashed over Maya. Deliver in the ambulance, without doctors or equipment or any of the safety nets she'd counted on? "No, please. We have to make it to the hospital." "We're trying," the paramedic said. "But right now I need you to stay calm and breathe. Can you do that?" Maya tried. She tried so hard. But calm felt impossible when her body was being torn apart and her baby's life hung in some horrible balance she couldn't see or control. She reached out blindly, desperately, and found Caleb's hand, gripped it with all her remaining strength. He didn't pull away. His fingers closed around hers, warm and solid and steady. "Breathe with me," he said. "In for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. Now out for 4 counts." Maya followed his counting, using his voice as an anchor in the storm of pain and fear. In, hold, out, in, hold, out. The pattern gave her something to focus on beyond the animal terror trying to consume her. The ambulance swerved, and Maya heard the distant wail of sirens. Theirs or someone else's, she couldn't tell. The city passed by in a blur beyond the small windows. How far to the hospital? How much longer could her baby survive with a dropping heart rate? How much more could her own body endure? "Almost there," the male paramedic said. He was monitoring equipment Maya couldn't see, his expression tight with concentration. 2 more minutes. 2 minutes felt like hours. Maya rode the contractions in waves that never seemed to fully recede, each one building on the last until she couldn't remember what it felt like not to be in pain. Caleb kept counting, kept breathing with her, his hand never loosening its grip on hers. The ambulance finally lurched to a stop. The back doors flew open, and suddenly there were more people, nurses in scrubs, someone shouting medical terminology Maya didn't understand. The stretcher was moving again, wheeled at a run through automatic doors and down bright hallways that smelled of disinfectant and floor polish. Maya Brooks, 39 weeks pregnant, in active labor with fetal distress, someone was saying. 7 centimeters dilated, contractions every 3 minutes, presenting with vaginal bleeding in rapid progression. They burst through doors into a delivery room. Hands transferred Maya from the stretcher to a bed, removing her coat and pants with efficiency that left no room for modesty. A blood pressure cuff tightened around her arm. Monitors were attached to her belly, immediately filling the room with the rapid, thready sound of her baby's heartbeat. "Heart rate's at 90, a nurse said urgently. "Doctor's on the way." 90. Maya knew enough to know that was too low. Normal fetal heart rate was somewhere between 110 and 160. 90 meant her baby was in distress, struggling, possibly dying. "No," Maya sobbed. "Please, no, help her." "We're helping." A new voice, authoritative and calm. A doctor pushed into the room, already gloved and gowned. She was middle-aged with gray-streaked hair and eyes that had seen 1,000 deliveries. "Maya, I'm Dr. Chen. We're going to get your baby out safely, but I need you to work with me." "Can you do that?" Maya nodded through her tears. "Good. On the next contraction, I need you to push. Give me everything you have. The next contraction came almost immediately, a massive, overwhelming wave that felt like her body was trying to turn itself inside out. Maya bore down with all her strength, pushing past the pain and fear into some primal place where nothing existed except the need to bring her child into the world. Good, that's good, Dr. Chen said. Again, push. Maya pushed and pushed and pushed. Time lost meaning. There was only the rhythm of contractions and pushing and the doctor's voice guiding her through each agonizing second. Her world shrank to this room, this moment, this impossible task her body was fighting to complete. Through it all, someone held her hand. Through it all, someone stayed. She didn't realize it was still Caleb until much later. In the moment, he was just a presence, solid and unmoving while everything else swirled in chaos. When she squeezed his hand hard enough to hurt, he didn't flinch. When she screamed, he didn't leave. He just stayed, breathing with her, being there in the only way that mattered. The head's crowning, Dr. Chen announced. One more big push, Maya. You're almost there. Almost there. Maya gathered every remaining scrap of strength and pushed with everything she had left. She felt something give, felt pressure and pain, and then sudden, shocking relief. A baby's cry filled the room, thin and outraged and absolutely beautiful. It's a girl, Dr. Chen said, lifting the tiny, squirming body high enough for Maya to see. You have a daughter. A daughter. Maya reached for her baby with trembling hands, and a nurse placed the infant against her chest, warm and wet and impossibly alive. The baby's cries quieted against Maya's skin, and Maya felt tears streaming down her face as she looked at the tiny face, the perfect fingers, the daughter she'd carried for 9 months and now held in her arms. She's okay? Maya whispered. She's really okay? Heart rate's coming back up, the nurse monitoring the equipment reported. 120? 130. She's looking good. Relief crashed over Maya so powerfully it felt like a physical force. Her daughter was alive, safe, here. Nothing else mattered in that moment. Not Evan's absence, not the fear and pain of the last hour, not the uncertain future stretching ahead. Just this. Her daughter, breathing and crying and real. A nurse leaned in with a warm smile. You did great, Dad. Maya looked up, confused, and saw the nurse was speaking to Caleb. He stood slightly apart from the cluster of medical staff, still holding Maya's hand, though she'd loosened her grip. In the chaos of delivery, in the urgency of saving a baby's life, the hospital staff had made an assumption. The man who came in the ambulance, who held her hand through labor, who stayed when he could have left, must be the father. Oh, he's not, Maya started. But Caleb didn't correct the nurse. He just gave the slightest nod, the kind that could mean anything or nothing, and stepped back to let the medical team finish their work. Maya wanted to explain, wanted to clarify, but exhaustion was pulling at her like a tide, and her daughter was nuzzling against her chest with tiny, seeking movements that demanded all of Maya's attention. The nurses cleaned the baby, measured and weighed her, performed all the standard checks while Maya drifted in a haze of relief and shock. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, 20 inches long, perfectly healthy despite the traumatic delivery. They wrapped her in a white blanket with pink and blue stripes and placed her back in Maya's arms. Have you chosen a name? A nurse asked, clipboard ready to record the information. Maya looked down at her daughter. She and Evan had discussed names a few times, but never seriously, never with the kind of commitment that would make anything stick. Evan had suggested names of actresses he liked, names from video games, names that meant nothing to Maya. She'd kept waiting for a name to feel right, and now, holding her daughter, one finally did. Lily, Maya said softly. Her name is Lily. The nurse wrote it down, smiling. That's beautiful. Do you want me to add father's name to the birth certificate paperwork? Reality crashed back in. Evan. He should be here. Should have been here hours ago when Maya first went into labor. She fumbled for her phone, checking for messages or missed calls. Nothing. He hadn't called back, hadn't even texted to check if she was okay. No, Maya said quietly. Not yet. The nurse's expression shifted. A flicker of understanding or perhaps sympathy. She'd probably seen this before, Maya realized. Women giving birth alone, partners who didn't show up, the small, private tragedies that played out in delivery rooms when the celebration felt hollow. "We'll get you moved to a recovery room," the nurse said gently. "You need rest." The next hour passed in a blur of activity. More checks, paperwork, the transfer to a different room with a bed and monitors and a small bassinet where Lily slept. Maya felt scraped hollow, her body exhausted beyond anything she'd imagined possible. But she couldn't stop watching her daughter, couldn't stop marveling at the tiny, perfect person who had come from her own body. At some point, she realized Caleb was gone. She looked around the room, but he'd vanished as quietly as he'd stayed, slipping away while she was distracted, leaving without saying goodbye or accepting thanks or asking for anything in return. Maya felt the loss of his presence more acutely than she wanted to admit. The stranger who had knelt beside her on a frozen sidewalk, who had held her hand through the worst pain of her life, who had stayed when he had every reason to leave. He'd given her something she couldn't name, something more valuable than medical expertise or basic human decency. He'd made her feel like she mattered, like her life and her baby's life was worth stopping for. Her phone finally buzzed. Maya grabbed it, expecting Evan, but found a text from her mother instead. Her mother, who lived 3 states away and called maybe once a month, who'd made her disapproval of Maya's relationship with Evan perfectly clear from the beginning. The text read, "Heard through the grapevine you had the baby. Hope everything went okay. Let me know if you need anything." Heard through the grapevine. Not from Maya herself, because Maya hadn't called her. Hadn't wanted to hear the judgment in her mother's voice, the subtle disappointment that Maya had gotten pregnant by a man who didn't have a stable job or ambition or any of the qualities her mother thought essential in a partner. Maya set the phone down without responding. She'd deal with her mother later. Right now, she had to figure out what to say to Evan when he finally showed up. If he showed up. Lily stirred in her bassinet, making small mewing sounds that pulled at something deep in Maya's chest. She reached over and picked up her daughter, settling the baby against her chest with movements that felt instinctive despite her complete lack of experience. Lily's tiny hand closed around Maya's finger with surprising strength, and Maya felt her heart crack wide open with a love so fierce it frightened her. "I've got you," Maya whispered to her daughter. "Whatever happens, I've got you." But even as she said the words, doubt crept in. How was she supposed to take care of this tiny, dependent life when she couldn't even take care of herself? When the baby's father couldn't be bothered to answer his phone during the most important day of their lives? When she had no job, no savings, no support system beyond a boyfriend who'd proven his priorities by his absence? The door to her room opened and Maya's heart jumped. Evan, finally. But it was just a nurse coming to check her vital signs and see if she needed anything. Maya submitted to the thermometer and blood pressure cuff, answered questions about pain levels and bleeding, and watched the nurse leave again. Alone. Again. The afternoon faded into evening. Nurses came and went. Lily nursed and slept and cried and nursed again, demanding attention with the absolute certainty of a newborn who knew nothing but need. Maya gave her everything, her body, her attention, her love, and felt herself being hollowed out and rebuilt around this new reality. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Evan. "Sorry, just saw your messages. Congrats on the baby. Be there tomorrow morning." Tomorrow morning. Not tonight. Not racing to the hospital to meet his daughter and make sure Maya was okay. Tomorrow morning, like she'd done something that could wait, like this was an appointment he could reschedule rather than the birth of his child. Maya stared at the message until the words blurred. Something cold and hard settled in her chest. Not quite anger, not quite resignation, just a clear, crystalline understanding that had been building for months and finally sharpened into focus. She was alone. She'd been alone throughout the pregnancy, alone through labor, and she would be alone raising Lily. Evan's presence or absence didn't change that fundamental truth. He'd made his choice by not showing up when it mattered most. Now Maya had to figure out what her choice would be. Lily began to fuss, and Maya lifted her daughter, rocking gently and humming a tuneless melody that seemed to soothe them both. Through the hospital room window, the city lights sparkled against the dark sky. Somewhere out there, people were living their ordinary lives, eating dinner, watching television, complaining about mundane problems. Somewhere out there, a man named Caleb was going home to whatever life he led, probably not thinking twice about the woman he'd helped on the sidewalk. But Maya would remember. She would remember that when she collapsed, terrified and alone, one person stopped. One person stayed. One person made her believe, even for a few hours, that she deserved to be saved. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that one moment of kindness could be the foundation for something stronger, a belief that she could save herself, that she could be the person who didn't walk away when her daughter needed her. The night stretched ahead, long and uncertain, but Maya held her baby close, felt the warmth of Lily's small body against her chest, and knew that whatever came next, she would face it. Not because she felt strong or prepared or capable, but because now she had no choice. Evan arrived at 11 the next morning, carrying a small stuffed bear and the smell of cigarette smoke. He'd showered, at least. His hair was damp and pushed back from his face, but there was something in the way he held himself that made Maya's stomach tighten even before he spoke, like he was doing her a favor by showing up at all. "Hey," he said from the doorway, not quite meeting her eyes. "How are you feeling?" Maya looked up from where she sat in the hospital bed, Lily asleep in her arms. She'd been awake most of the night, too wired with adrenaline and new mother anxiety to rest despite the exhaustion weighing down her bones. Every time she'd started to drift off, panic would jolt her awake. What if Lily stopped breathing? What if something was wrong? What if Maya fell asleep and dropped her? So she'd stayed awake, watching her daughter's chest rise and fall, memorizing every detail of Lily's tiny face. "I'm tired," Maya said. Her voice came out flat, stripped of the emotion churning beneath the surface. "And sore. And I just had our baby completely alone while you couldn't be bothered to answer your phone." Evan winced and stepped further into the room. "I know. I'm sorry. My phone died and I didn't realize until way later. I came as soon as I saw your messages." 12 hours later. "Maya, come on, don't do this." He set the stuffed bear on the rolling table beside the bed. A generic brown teddy with a red bow that had probably come from a gas station. "I'm here now, aren't I?" The thing was, he looked genuinely confused by her anger, like he couldn't understand why she'd expected more from him than eventual arrival. Maya felt something crack in her chest, but she pushed it down. This wasn't the time. She'd just given birth. Her body ached everywhere. She didn't have the energy to fight. "Do you want to hold her?" Maya asked instead. Evan's expression shifted, uncertainty replacing the defensiveness. He approached the bed slowly, like Lily might explode if he moved too fast. Maya carefully transferred their daughter into his arms, adjusting his hold when he didn't quite support her head correctly. "She's so small," Evan said. He was looking at Lily with something that might have been wonder, but it was laced with an edge that made Maya uneasy. "How much does she weigh?" 7 pounds, 3 ounces. "That's not that small. My buddy's kid was like 5 pounds. Maya bit back her response. This wasn't a competition. But Evan had a way of turning everything into comparisons, whose pregnancy was harder, whose labor was longer, whose baby slept better, as if quantifying experiences somehow made them more manageable. Lily stirred in Evan's arms, her face scrunching up in that way that meant she was about to cry. Evan immediately tensed. "What do I do? Is she okay?" "She's fine. She's probably just hungry." Maya reached for her daughter, and Evan handed Lily back with visible relief. "I'm not good with the crying," he said, stepping back. "It stresses me out." Maya positioned Lily to nurse, a process that still felt awkward and uncertain despite the nurse's patient instruction. Evan watched for a moment, then turned away and pulled out his phone, scrolling with his thumb while Maya struggled with latching and positioning. "So how did you get to the hospital?" Evan asked without looking up from his screen. "Did you call an Uber or something?" "I collapsed on the sidewalk. Someone called an ambulance." That got his attention. Evan's head snapped up. "You collapsed? Like passed out?" "Yes, I was walking to the grocery store and went into labor. I fell, and nobody would help me until—" Maya stopped herself. She didn't know why she didn't want to tell Evan about Caleb. Maybe because his kindness felt like something precious that would be diminished by Evan's inevitable dismissiveness. Until what? Until someone finally stopped and called 911. Evan processed this, his jaw working. "Jesus, Maya, why didn't you tell me you were going to the store? I would have driven you." "You took the car without asking. Again. I had things to do." What things, Evan? What was so important that you needed the car while your 9 months pregnant girlfriend walked 6 blocks in February? Don't start. Evan's voice went sharp with warning. I said I'm sorry about not answering the phone. Don't turn this into some big thing about the car. Maya wanted to scream, wanted to shake him and make him understand that it was a big thing, that all of it was a big thing, the casual dismissal of her needs, the way he prioritized his own convenience over her safety, the fact that he hadn't been there when she needed him most. But Lily was nursing peacefully, and Maya was so tired she could barely form thoughts into coherent arguments. When can we go home? Evan asked, shoving his phone back in his pocket. How long do they keep you here? Probably tomorrow if everything checks out okay. Tomorrow? They make you stay that long? It's standard for vaginal deliveries. They need to make sure there are no complications. Evan made a face. That's a long time. What am I supposed to do? Just sit here? Maya stared at him. You could spend time with your daughter, get to know her, help me figure out how to take care of her. I don't know anything about babies, Maya. That's your thing. He glanced at his phone again. Look, I'm going to go grab some food. You want anything from the cafeteria? I'm fine. Okay, I'll be back in a bit. He left before Maya could respond. The door clicked shut behind him, and Maya sat in the sudden silence, Lily warm against her chest, feeling more alone than she had on the sidewalk yesterday. The morning dragged into afternoon. Evan returned with a sandwich and complaints about the hospital food, stayed for 20 minutes making conversation that felt forced and shallow, then left again saying he needed to run errands. Maya didn't ask what errands. Didn't want to know. A different nurse came by around 2, younger than the others, with kind eyes and movements that radiated competence. Her name tag read Rachel. How are you doing, Mama? Rachel asked while checking Maya's vitals. Getting any rest? Not really. That's pretty normal. The adrenaline keeps you wired even when you're exhausted. Rachel finished with the blood pressure cuff and made notes on her tablet. Is your partner around? Sometimes having help with diaper changes and bringing the baby to you can make it easier to sleep. He's running errands. Something flickered across Rachel's face, an expression Maya recognized from yesterday's nurse. That look of careful neutrality that meant she'd seen this scenario before and knew better than to comment. Well, you're doing great on your own, Rachel said instead, but don't be afraid to ask for help. We're here for you. Can I ask you something? Maya spoke before she could second-guess herself. Yesterday, when I was in labor, there was a man who came in the ambulance with me. He stayed during the delivery. I think his name was Caleb. Rachel's expression brightened with recognition. Oh, Dr. Ward. Yeah, he does that sometimes. Goes above and beyond, you know. He's one of the good ones. He's a doctor? ER attending. Works downstairs. I heard he found you on the street? He did. Maya felt something loosen in her chest. I wanted to thank him, but he left before I could. He usually does. Doesn't like a lot of attention. Rachel smiled, but I can let him know you're asking after him if you want. Yes. Please. I need him to know how much it meant, that he stayed. I'll pass it along. Rachel squeezed Maya's shoulder gently. You get some rest, okay? Even just closing your eyes for a few minutes helps. After Rachel left, Maya tried to follow the advice. She laid Lily in the bassinet and closed her eyes, but her mind wouldn't stop racing. Dr. Ward, an ER doctor who'd been walking past when she collapsed, who'd stopped and called an ambulance and rode with her to the hospital, even though he could have just handed her off to the paramedics. Who'd held her hand through labor and never once made her feel like a burden. Why had he done that? Doctors weren't obligated to stay with random patients they encountered outside the hospital. He could have walked away once the ambulance arrived, could have left her in the capable hands of the medical staff, but he'd chosen to stay. Maya thought about that choice, the deliberate decision to remain present for a stranger's suffering, and felt something shift in her understanding of what kindness looked like. Not grand gestures or dramatic rescues, just staying, just being there when leaving would have been easier. She must have dozed off at some point because the next thing she knew, Lily was crying, and the light through the window had changed to late afternoon gold. Maya picked up her daughter and went through the now familiar routine of nursing and burping and changing. Her body moved on autopilot, muscle memory building even after just a day. Evan didn't come back that evening. He texted around 6 to say he was tired and would see her tomorrow when she was discharged. Maya stared at the message for a long time before setting the phone aside without responding. What was there to say? He'd made his priorities clear. That night was harder than the first. The adrenaline had worn off completely, leaving Maya with nothing but exhaustion and a body that hurt in ways she hadn't known were possible. Everything ached. Her breasts were tender and swollen with milk, her abdomen cramped with afterpains every time Lily nursed, and sitting was almost unbearable despite the ice packs and pain medication the nurses provided. But the physical pain was manageable compared to the fear that crept in during the dark hours. Every time Lily cried, Maya worried she was doing something wrong. Was the baby getting enough milk? Why did she cry for 20 minutes straight, even after being fed and changed? What if Maya had already failed at the most basic task of motherhood? Around 3 in the morning, Maya sat in the dim room crying as hard as her daughter. She felt fractured, coming apart at the seams, held together by nothing but sheer force of will. How was she supposed to do this? How did anyone do this alone? A soft knock interrupted her spiral. The door opened and Rachel appeared, still in scrubs despite the late hour. "Hey, I saw your light was on. Everything okay?" "I don't know what I'm doing," Maya said through tears. "She won't stop crying, and I've tried everything, and I'm so tired I can't think straight." Rachel came in and gently took Lily from Maya's arms. She walked the baby around the room, swaying and humming, and within minutes Lily's cries subsided to hiccups and then silence. She handed the sleeping infant back to Maya. "Sometimes they just need a different rhythm," Rachel said kindly. "And sometimes new moms need a moment to fall apart. Both of those things are okay. I'm not ready for this. I thought I would be, but I'm not. Nobody's ready, even people who've had 3 kids before. Every baby is different, and you just have to figure it out as you go." Rachel sat on the edge of the bed. "Can I be honest with you about something?" Maya nodded, clutching Lily against her chest. "I've been doing this job for 10 years. I've seen hundreds of new mothers come through these doors. The ones who struggle most aren't the ones who don't know what they're doing. Every first-time mom is figuring it out on the fly. The ones who really struggle are the ones who don't have support." Rachel paused, choosing her words carefully. "I noticed your partner hasn't been around much. He's busy. I'm sure he is, but babies don't wait for convenient times, and neither does postpartum recovery." Rachel looked at Maya with eyes that had seen too many women in exactly this position. "Do you have family nearby? Friends who can help?" "My mom lives in Ohio, and my friends, I don't know, we haven't been close lately." "What about Dr. Ward?" Maya looked up, startled. "What about him?" "He left something for you at the nurse's station." Rachel pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket. "Asked me to give it to you when I had a chance." Maya took the paper with trembling fingers and unfolded it. The handwriting was precise, almost clinical. "Maya, I wanted to check in but didn't want to intrude. The nurses tell me you and Lily are doing well physically." "That's good. What's less good is that you're doing this without adequate support. I'm not trying to overstep, but I want you to have some resources that might help. The hospital runs a single-parent support group that meets every Thursday evening. There's also subsidized childcare available through the community health center, and postpartum doula services if you qualify. Contact information for all of these is below. You don't have to do this alone, even when it feels like you are. Caleb Ward. Below his message was a list of phone numbers, email addresses, and program names written in that same careful script. Maya read through them twice, then looked up at Rachel with tears streaming down her face. "He left this for me?" "This morning. Said he wanted to make sure you had support options." Rachel smiled. "Like I said, one of the good ones." Maya couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. This stranger, this doctor, who had no obligation to care what happened to her after the emergency passed, had taken time to research resources and write them down because he'd recognized something Maya had been trying to hide from herself. That she was drowning, that Evan wasn't going to save her, that she needed help. "There's something else," Rachel said gently. "The social worker would like to talk to you before you're discharged tomorrow, just to make sure you have everything you need at home. It's standard procedure, nothing to worry about." But Maya heard what Rachel wasn't saying. They'd noticed the absent partner, the lack of visitors, the 20-year-old woman with no support system trying to care for a newborn while recovering from a traumatic delivery. They were concerned, and rightfully so. "Okay," Maya said. "I'll talk to her." Rachel left, and Maya sat holding the paper Caleb had left. She read his words again and again, memorizing them. "You don't have to do this alone." But she was alone. That was the reality she had to accept. Evan was going to be useless. She'd known that on some level for months, but had kept hoping he'd rise to the occasion, become the partner she needed when it really mattered. He hadn't. He wouldn't. And Maya had to figure out how to build a life for herself and Lily around that truth. The next morning dawned gray and cold. Maya went through the discharge process in a fog, signing paperwork, receiving instructions about postpartum care, and warning signs to watch for, nodding along to demonstrations of car seat installation, even though she had no idea where the car seat was or if Evan had even bought one. The social worker arrived just before noon. Her name was Patricia, and she had silver hair and a no-nonsense demeanor that somehow felt comforting rather than intimidating. "Maya, I'm going to ask you some direct questions," Patricia said, settling into the chair beside the bed with a tablet. "I need honest answers. Nobody's here to judge you. We just want to make sure you and Lily have what you need. Okay?" "Okay." "Do you have safe housing?" "Yes." "An apartment?" "Is it a stable situation? Are you worried about losing your housing?" Maya hesitated. "We're month to month. Evan, my boyfriend, was laid off a couple months ago. Money's tight." "Is Evan Lily's father?" "Yes." "Is he employed currently?" "No, he's looking." Patricia made notes without commenting. "How would you characterize your relationship with Evan?" "What do you mean? Is it supportive, stable? Are there any safety concerns?" "He's not abusive, if that's what you're asking." "That's good, but support can mean a lot of things. Does he contribute to household responsibilities? Is he involved in preparations for the baby?" Maya thought about the empty nursery corner in their bedroom, the lack of diapers or wipes or any supplies beyond the few things Maya had managed to buy with her own savings. The way Evan complained about the cost of formula, even though Maya planned to breastfeed. His absence during labor and most of her hospital stay. "He's figuring it out," Maya said, which wasn't a lie but wasn't the truth either. Patricia's expression suggested she'd heard similar evasions many times before. "Maya, I want you to know about some programs that might be helpful. There's WITSI for nutritional support. Medicaid can cover your postpartum care and Lily's pediatric visits. And there are emergency assistance programs if you find yourself in a crisis situation. Housing assistance, food banks, childcare subsidies." "I don't need charity." "It's not charity. It's support. There's a difference." Patricia slid a folder across the bed. "Everything's in here. Phone numbers, websites, eligibility requirements. I'm also including information about the domestic violence hotline, not because I think you need it now, but because I want you to have it if circumstances change." Maya took the folder but didn't open it. Accepting these resources felt like admitting defeat, like confirming that she couldn't handle her life without intervention. But maybe that was pride talking. Maybe accepting help wasn't weakness. Maybe it was the smartest thing she could do for Lily. "Thank you," Maya said quietly. "One more thing." Patricia leaned forward. "If you ever feel like you might hurt yourself or Lily, or if you're having thoughts that scare you, I need you to call someone immediately. Postpartum depression and anxiety are real medical conditions, and they're nothing to be ashamed of, but they need treatment. Promise me you'll reach out if that happens." "I promise." Patricia left, and Maya was alone with Lily again. The final discharge papers came through around 1. A nurse helped Maya get dressed, a humbling experience that required assistance because bending and reaching were still difficult. They provided a wheelchair for the trip to the entrance, even though Maya insisted she could walk. Evan was waiting outside with the car running. He'd cleaned it out at least. The fast food wrappers and empty energy drink cans that usually littered the interior were gone. And there was a car seat installed in the back, still with tags attached. "Had to watch like 3 YouTube videos to figure that thing out," Evan said as the nurse helped settle Lily into the seat. "They make it way more complicated than it needs to be." Maya didn't respond. She climbed carefully into the passenger seat, every movement sending pain through her body. The nurse handed the discharge folder through the window and wished them luck with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The drive home was quiet. Evan turned the radio on low, some pop station playing songs Maya didn't recognize. Lily slept peacefully in her car seat, oblivious to the tension filling the car like smoke. "So I was thinking," Evan said about halfway home. "My buddy Jake said his girlfriend's sister has a bunch of baby stuff she's trying to get rid of, like a crib and changing table and whatever. We should probably get that stuff before she gives it to someone else. Okay? And we need to figure out the money situation. I applied for unemployment, but who knows when that'll come through. Do you think you can go back to work soon?" Maya turned to stare at him. "Evan, I just gave birth yesterday." "I know, but eventually, like in a few weeks or whatever, we need income coming in. I'm not going back to work in a few weeks. I need to recover. And someone has to take care of Lily." "Well, I can't exactly get a job and watch her at the same time. So you expect me to work and take care of the baby and recover from giving birth all at once?" "I'm just saying we need to be realistic about money." Evan's voice was rising. "I can't pull a job out of thin air, Maya, and babies are expensive. Formula and diapers and all that shit adds up. I'm breastfeeding." "What about when you go back to work? You gonna pump at your job?" Maya closed her eyes. She'd worked as a server at a chain restaurant before the pregnancy made standing for long shifts impossible. Her manager had been understanding about her needing time off for prenatal appointments, but Maya knew there was a limit to that understanding. Eventually she'd be expected back, and the restaurant wasn't the kind of place that had designated pumping rooms or flexibility for new mothers. "We'll figure it out," Maya said, the phrase automatic and meaningless. They pulled up in front of their apartment building, a 3-story complex that had been nice once, maybe 20 years ago. Now the paint was peeling and the parking lot was full of potholes and the hallways smelled like curry and cigarettes. Maya had lived here for 2 years, first with a roommate and then with Evan after her roommate moved out and Maya couldn't afford the rent alone. Getting Lily's car seat out of the car and up to their second-floor apartment was harder than expected. The car seat was heavier than it looked, and Maya's arms trembled with the effort. Evan carried the discharge folder and the stuffed bear, walking ahead while Maya struggled behind him. The apartment looked exactly as she'd left it yesterday morning. Dishes in the sink, Evan's clothes scattered across the bedroom floor. The corner where they'd talked about setting up a nursery still empty, except for some boxes of Evan's old video game consoles. Nothing prepared. Nothing ready. Maya set the car seat on the couch and stood looking around at the space that was supposed to be Lily's home. It felt inadequate in every way, too small, too messy, too chaotic for the tiny, helpless person sleeping in the carrier. "I'm going to take a nap," Evan announced, heading for the bedroom. "I didn't sleep good last night." He closed the bedroom door before Maya could respond. She stood in the living room swaying slightly with exhaustion and felt the weight of her new reality settle over her like a physical burden. This was her life now, this apartment, this absent partner, this complete and overwhelming responsibility. Lily woke up crying, and Maya lifted her from the car seat with movements that were becoming familiar. She settled into the corner of the couch and got Lily latched, wincing at the sharp pull that meant her milk was coming in stronger. Through the thin bedroom door, she could hear Evan already snoring. Maya looked down at her daughter nursing contentedly, oblivious to everything beyond her immediate needs. So small, so dependent, so completely, utterly vulnerable. "I've got you," Maya whispered again. But this time the words felt less like a promise and more like a prayer, a desperate hope that she could somehow be enough for this tiny person who deserved so much more than what Maya had to offer. The afternoon faded into evening. Evan emerged from the bedroom around 6, groggy and irritable, complaining that Lily's crying had woken him up. He made himself dinner, ramen from a packet, and ate it standing at the counter while scrolling through his phone. "Did you make enough for me?" Maya asked from the couch where she'd barely moved in hours. "Oh, sorry. I didn't think about it." Evan looked at the empty pot. "There's more packets in the cabinet if you want some." Maya wanted to cry, wanted to scream, wanted to explain that she couldn't just get up and cook because her body was destroyed and the baby needed her every 20 minutes, and she'd been sitting on this couch holding Lily for 4 hours straight while he slept. But the words wouldn't come. She was too tired, too defeated. "I'll eat later," Maya said. She didn't eat later. Lily cluster-fed all evening, nursing almost continuously, and by the time there was a break, Maya was too exhausted to move. She dozed sitting up, Lily against her chest, while some show played on the TV that Evan watched without offering to take the baby. Around midnight, Maya finally managed to transfer Lily to the car seat and stumbled to the bathroom. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. Dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed and tangled, still wearing the loose sweatpants and oversized shirt from the hospital because she hadn't had energy to change. This was motherhood. This was the reality behind the Instagram posts and baby shower celebrations. Exhaustion and pain and loneliness so profound it felt like drowning. Maya splashed water on her face and went back to the living room. Lily was awake again, fussing in the carrier. Evan was asleep on the couch, one arm thrown over his face, snoring softly. He'd sleep through anything. Maya picked up her daughter and settled back into the corner of the couch, getting Lily latched while tears rolled silently down her cheeks. She thought about the paper Caleb had left, support groups, resources, help. It sat in the discharge folder on the kitchen counter, and Maya stared at it across the dark apartment. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe when she had energy. Maybe when she could admit out loud that she was falling apart. For now, she just held her daughter and watched the hours tick by on the wall clock and wondered how she was going to survive this. One day, 1 hour, 1 minute at a time, because that was all she could do. That was all any of them could do. The days blurred together into an endless cycle of feeding and changing and trying to sleep in 20-minute increments. Maya existed in a fog so thick she sometimes couldn't remember if it was morning or evening, Tuesday or Friday. Time lost meaning when every hour looked the same. Lily crying, Evan complaining, Maya's body aching with a pain that never quite subsided. By the end of the first week home, Maya realized she hadn't showered in 4 days. The realization hit her while she sat on the bathroom floor at 3 a.m, Lily finally asleep in her arms, too exhausted to make it back to the couch. She caught her reflection in the cabinet mirror and saw a stranger, hollow-eyed and unwashed, wearing a shirt stained with spit up and milk, hair matted against her head. When had she stopped being a person and become just a body? Just a source of food and comfort for a tiny human who needed everything and gave nothing back except screams and dirty diapers? Maya knew that thought was wrong even as she had it. Lily was an infant. She couldn't help being helpless. But the resentment crept in anyway during those dark hours when Maya sat alone in the bathroom holding her sleeping daughter, wondering if anyone would notice if she just disappeared. Evan certainly wouldn't. He'd adapted to fatherhood by pretending it wasn't happening. He slept in the bedroom with the door closed and earbuds in. He left every morning to look for work and came back smelling like cigarettes in his buddy Jake's basement. He held Lily maybe twice a day, always handing her back the moment she started crying, saying he didn't know what she wanted. She wants to be fed or changed or held, Maya would say, too tired to hide her frustration. Then you do it, Evan would respond. You're better at it than me. Better at it. As if being a woman automatically made her competent at something she'd never done before. As if Maya had been born knowing how to soothe a colicky baby at 2 a.m, how to function on no sleep, how to breastfeed through cracked and bleeding nipples that made her cry every time Lily latched. The second week was worse than the first. Lily developed what the pediatrician called normal infant fussiness, but what felt to Maya like hours of inconsolable screaming. Nothing helped. Feeding didn't help. Rocking didn't help. Walking, singing, white noise, swaddling, nothing made a difference. Lily would cry for 2 hours straight, her little face turning red with the force of her distress, and Maya would cry right along with her. Can you please take her? Maya begged Evan one evening when she'd been trying to calm Lily for 90 minutes and felt like she was going to crack. Just for 10 minutes. I need to breathe. Evan looked up from his phone with visible reluctance. I don't know what you expect me to do. She's obviously hungry. She just ate an hour ago. Then I don't know what's wrong with her. Neither do I. That's why I'm asking for help. Don't yell at me. Jesus. Evan stood up, shaking his head. I'm going to Jake's. You clearly need some space. He left. Just walked out of the apartment while Lily screamed and Maya stood in the middle of the living room feeling like her entire world was collapsing inward. When the door closed behind him, something broke in Maya's chest. Not dramatically, not with any kind of cathartic release, just a quiet fracturing that left her hollow. She was alone. Completely, irrevocably alone. Maya lasted another 3 days before her body gave out. She woke up Tuesday morning, or thought it was Tuesday, time had become meaningless, and couldn't get off the couch. Her legs wouldn't hold her weight. Everything spun when she tried to sit up. And there was blood. Too much blood. Lily was crying in the car seat, had been crying for who knew how long while Maya drifted in and out of consciousness. The apartment was silent otherwise. Evan had stayed at Jake's the night before, said something about needing to clear his head. Maya had stopped arguing, stopped trying to make him understand that she needed him. Nothing she said made any difference. She reached for her phone with trembling hands and called 911. Gave her address through teeth chattering with shock or fear or both. Said she'd just had a baby and something was wrong. Then she must have passed out because the next thing she knew, paramedics were pounding on the door and she was trying to get up, to reach Lily, who was still crying, to do something other than lie there useless on the couch. A female paramedic found Maya on the floor. She'd managed to crawl halfway to the door before her body quit entirely. Lily was screaming in the car seat, face purple with rage or fear, and all Maya could think was that she'd failed at the one thing that mattered, keeping her daughter safe. "Ma'am, can you hear me? What's your name?" "Maya. My baby, please, my baby. Someone's getting your baby right now. We need to focus on you. How long have you been bleeding?" "I don't know. Hours maybe." "Is she okay? Please tell me she's okay." A male voice from across the room. "Baby's fine, just hungry and mad. I've got her." The female paramedic was checking Maya's vital signs, asking rapid-fire questions about when she'd given birth, how much blood she'd lost, if she had any medical conditions. Maya tried to answer, but everything kept sliding sideways, sound and light mixing into something that didn't make sense. They loaded her onto a stretcher. Someone, the male paramedic, carried Lily in her car seat. Maya reached for her daughter, but couldn't make her arm move. Everything felt distant, like she was watching from somewhere far away. The ambulance ride was a blur of voices and hands and equipment. Maya drifted in and out, catching fragments, blood pressure dropping, possible hemorrhage, alert OB. And through it all, Lily's cries, thin and desperate, the sound of a baby who didn't understand why no one was feeding her. At the hospital, chaos erupted. Nurses rushed Maya into an exam room while someone took Lily. A woman's voice promising to get the baby fed and changed. Not to worry, they'd take care of her. Maya wanted to protest, wanted to keep Lily with her, but she couldn't form words anymore. Dr. Chen appeared, the same doctor who delivered Lily, her face tight with concern. "Maya, you're hemorrhaging. We need to do an ultrasound to check for retained placenta. This might be uncomfortable." Uncomfortable was an understatement. Everything hurt. The exam, the ultrasound wand, the hands pressing on her abdomen. Maya heard herself whimper but couldn't stop it, couldn't be brave or stoic or any of the things she was supposed to be. "There it is," Dr. Chen said, pointing at the ultrasound screen. "Retained placental fragments. That's what's causing the bleeding. We need to remove them surgically." "Surgery?" The word came out slurred. Maya tried to focus through the fog. "But Lily, I need to feed Lily." "We've got someone giving her formula right now. Your baby is fine. You're not fine. We need to do a D&C to remove the tissue before you lose any more blood." Dr. Chen's voice was gentle but firm. "Maya, this is serious. Do you understand?" Maya nodded, or thought she did. She signed papers she couldn't read. They wheeled her somewhere bright and cold. Someone put a mask over her face and told her to count backward from 10. She made it to 7 before the world disappeared. When Maya woke up, she was in a hospital room with an IV in her arm and pain that radiated through her pelvis like fire. The light was different. Late afternoon instead of morning. How long had she been out, and where was Lily? Panic surged through her chest. "Lily," Maya tried to call out, but her voice came out as a croak. "Where's my baby?" A nurse appeared, not Rachel this time, but an older woman with gray in her dark hair. "Your baby's fine, honey. She's in the nursery getting spoiled by the staff. Let me page your doctor and we'll get her back to you soon. Is she okay? Did she eat? How long was I? She's perfect. Had 2 bottles and is sleeping like an angel. The nurse adjusted Maya's IV and checked the monitors. You've been in recovery for about 3 hours. The procedure went well. Dr. Chen will explain everything. 3 hours. Maya's breasts ached with fullness, milk she should have been feeding to Lily. Her daughter had been given formula by strangers while Maya lay unconscious. Another failure to add to the growing list. Dr. Chen came by 20 minutes later, pulling up a chair beside the bed. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. That's about right. Dr. Chen smiled sympathetically. We removed several large fragments of retained placenta. You lost a significant amount of blood, but we didn't need to do a transfusion. Your hemoglobin is low, so we're giving you iron supplements and keeping you overnight for observation. Can I see Lily? In a minute. First, I need to ask you some questions. Dr. Chen's expression shifted to something more serious. Maya, when you came in, you were severely dehydrated, malnourished, and showing signs of extreme exhaustion. The paramedics said they found you unconscious on your living room floor with your baby crying in a car seat. Can you tell me what's been going on at home? Maya looked away. I'm just tired. All new moms are tired. This goes beyond normal exhaustion. When did you last eat a full meal? Maya tried to remember and couldn't. Yesterday? Maybe the day before? And sleep? How many hours are you sleeping per day? I don't know, an hour here, 30 minutes there. Lily needs to eat every 2 hours. Is anyone helping you? The baby's father? He's around. He has his own stuff to deal with. Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment. Maya, I'm concerned you're developing postpartum depression. The physical symptoms you're experiencing, hemorrhaging, fainting, are being made worse by lack of food, sleep, and support. But there are also warning signs of mental health crisis. I'm fine. You passed out alone with an infant. That's not fine. If the baby had been on the couch with you, she could have fallen. If you'd been holding her, you could have dropped her. You put both of you at serious risk. The words hit like physical blows. Maya felt tears burning behind her eyes, but refused to let them fall. I'm trying my best. I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. I know you're trying. That's obvious. But trying isn't enough when you don't have adequate support. Dr. Chen leaned forward. I'm going to be direct with you, because I think you need someone to say this out loud. The situation you're in isn't sustainable. You need help, practical help, medical help, and possibly help getting out of a relationship that isn't serving you or your daughter. I can't leave Evan. Where would I go? There are resources, shelters, transitional housing programs, support services for single mothers. I'm not a single mother. Evan is Lily's father. Being a father means more than biology. Dr. Chen's voice was kind but uncompromising. It means showing up, taking responsibility, supporting your partner. Is Evan doing those things? Maya couldn't answer. Couldn't admit out loud what she'd known for weeks, that Evan was never going to be the partner she needed, the father Lily deserved. Saying it would make it real, and Maya wasn't ready for it to be real. I'm going to have the social worker come talk to you again, Dr. Chen said, standing, and I want you to seriously consider attending the support group Dr. Ward recommended. You need to be around other people who understand what you're going through. Dr. Ward? Caleb Ward, the ER doctor who helped you when you went into labor. He left resources for you, didn't he? Yes, he did. He's a good man, doesn't do things halfway. Dr. Chen checked her tablet. I'm going to have someone bring Lily in so you can feed her. But Maya, I need you to hear me. What you're experiencing isn't normal new mother exhaustion. It's a medical emergency waiting to happen again. Please get help before something worse occurs. After Dr. Chen left, Maya lay staring at the ceiling tiles and trying not to fall apart completely. Everything the doctor said was true. Maya knew it was true. But knowing and being able to act on that knowledge were two different things. Where was she supposed to find the energy to leave Evan, find housing, rebuild her entire life when she could barely manage to feed herself and her baby? A different nurse brought Lily in, and Maya's entire world narrowed to her daughter's face. 2 weeks old, and already she looked different, more alert, more present. Lily's eyes tracked movement now, fixed on Maya's face with an intensity that made Maya's chest ache. "Hi, baby girl," Maya whispered, getting Lily latched. The initial pain had become familiar, almost manageable. I'm so sorry I wasn't there." Lily nursed hungrily, little hands kneading against Maya's chest. The nurse had left them alone, and in the quiet hospital room, Maya let herself feel everything she'd been pushing down for weeks. Fear, exhaustion, loneliness, and underneath it all, a desperate love for this tiny person who depended on her completely. She couldn't keep living like this. Dr. Chen was right. Something had to change before something terrible happened. But what? How was she supposed to fix a situation that felt so thoroughly broken? Maya's phone buzzed. She managed to reach it one-handed, keeping Lily nursing. A text from Evan. "Jake said you went to hospital again? Everything okay?" Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "What happened?" Not, "I'm on my way." Just a casual question he could have been asking about the weather. Maya stared at the message for a long time before responding. Had complications from delivery, needed emergency surgery. "I'm fine now." His response came 5 minutes later. "Okay, good. Jake and I are working on his car. Be home later." That was it. No follow-up questions. No concern about where Lily was or whether Maya needed anything. Just confirmation that he was exactly where Maya had known he'd be, at Jake's, doing anything except being a father. Something hardened in Maya's chest. Not anger exactly, more like clarity. The fog that had been clouding her judgment for months seemed to lift, and she saw the situation with brutal honesty. Evan wasn't going to change. He'd shown her who he was 100 times over, through his absence, his complaints, his complete inability to prioritize anyone's needs above his own. Maya had been waiting for him to step up, to transform into the partner she needed. But people didn't transform because you needed them to. They either chose to grow or they didn't, and Evan had made his choice clear. The question was what choice Maya would make. She was still thinking about it when Patricia, the social worker, arrived an hour later. Patricia settled into the chair beside the bed and opened her tablet without preamble. "Dr. Chen called me. She's worried about you." "Everyone's worried about me." "With good reason." Patricia's expression was serious. "Maya, this is your second emergency hospital visit in 2 weeks. That's a pattern that indicates something is very wrong. I need to know if you and Lily are safe going back to your apartment." "We're safe. Evan doesn't hurt us." Physical safety is only one kind of safety. Are you emotionally safe, financially stable? Is there food in your home? Is someone helping you care for an infant while you recover from surgery? Maya felt tears slip down her cheeks, despite her effort to hold them back. "No, there's no food. Nobody's helping. I'm doing everything alone." "Then you're not safe." "Not really." Patricia leaned forward. "I want to talk to you about a program called Haven House. It's emergency housing for women with infants who need a safe place to stay while they get back on their feet. There's on-site childcare, parenting classes, job training, and counseling services. You'd have your own room, meals provided, and support staff available 24 hours a day." "You mean a shelter?" "I mean a bridge to independence. Women usually stay 3 to 6 months while they save money, find work, and secure permanent housing." Patricia pulled up information on her tablet. "I know it sounds scary, but I've seen dozens of women come through this program, and almost all of them say it saved their lives." "What about Evan? Can he visit?" "Visitors are allowed during designated hours. But Maya, I need to ask, why do you want Evan to visit? What is he bringing to your life right now that's worth maintaining the relationship?" The question hung in the air between them. Maya opened her mouth to answer and realized she didn't have one. What was Evan bringing to her life? Stress? Resentment? The constant feeling that she was failing because she couldn't do everything alone. He didn't provide financial support or emotional comfort or practical help with Lily. He was just there, taking up space, making everything harder. "I don't know," Maya admitted. "I don't know anymore." Patricia's expression softened. "That's okay. You don't have to make any decisions right now, but I want you to have the information so you can think about it. The Haven House has an opening if you want it. You could move in as soon as you're discharged tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" "Dr. Chen is releasing you in the morning, assuming everything stays stable overnight. which means you have about 18 hours to decide what you want your life to look like. Patricia slid a folder across the bed, different from the one she'd given Maya after Lily's birth, but just as thick with resources and phone numbers. Whatever you choose, you're not alone. There are people who want to help you. You just have to let them. After Patricia left, Maya sat holding the folder and watching Lily sleep in her arms. Tomorrow. 18 hours. A choice that would determine the trajectory of both their lives. Going home meant returning to the apartment, to Evan's indifference, to the exhausting cycle of doing everything alone while pretending she had a partner. It meant the familiar, even if the familiar was slowly destroying her. Haven House meant admitting failure, admitting she couldn't make her relationship work, admitting she needed help from strangers. It meant uncertainty and change, and walking away from the life she'd tried so hard to build. But maybe that life had been built on a foundation that was never solid to begin with. Maybe clinging to something broken didn't make it fixable. It just meant staying broken yourself. Maya's phone rang. Not Evan this time, her mother. Maya hesitated, then answered. Maya? Finally. I've been trying to reach you for days. Her mother's voice was sharp with worry. What's going on? Why aren't you answering your phone? I've been busy, Mom. I had a baby, remember? Of course I remember. That's why I'm worried. How are you doing? How's the baby? The concern in her mother's voice, real concern, not obligation, cracked something open in Maya. I'm not okay. None of this is okay. She told her mother everything. The hemorrhaging, the surgery, the complete absence of support from Evan, how she'd been found unconscious on her living room floor with Lily crying in her car seat, how Dr. Chen said she was showing signs of postpartum depression, how a social worker had offered her a place at a shelter for mothers. Her mother was silent for a long moment after Maya finished. Then, pack your things. I'm driving down tonight. Mom, you don't have to. Yes, I do. You're my daughter and you need help. I should have come sooner. Should have checked on you instead of waiting for you to ask. Her mother's voice cracked. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. But I'm coming now and we're going to figure this out together. I don't know what to do. That's okay. You don't have to know right now. Just rest. Take care of that beautiful granddaughter of mine. I'll be there in the morning and we'll make a plan. After the call ended, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in weeks, a tiny spark of hope. She wasn't as alone as she'd thought. Her mother was coming. There were resources available. There were people who cared whether she survived this. That night, Maya didn't sleep. She sat in the hospital bed holding Lily and thinking about the future, about what she wanted for her daughter, about what kind of mother she wanted to be, not the exhausted, resentful, barely functioning version of herself she'd become, but someone stronger, someone who chose dignity and self-respect over the comfort of familiar misery. By the time dawn light crept through the hospital window, Maya had made her decision. She would go to Haven House, would accept the help being offered, would start building a life where she and Lily could not just survive but actually thrive. It was the scariest decision she'd ever made, but somehow, watching her daughter sleep peacefully in her arms, it also felt like the first right decision in a very long time. Maya's mother arrived at the hospital at 8 in the morning carrying 2 duffel bags and the kind of determined expression that meant she'd driven through the night without stopping. Susan Brooks was 52, with graying blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail and lines around her eyes that came from worry more than age. She walked into Maya's hospital room, set down the bags, and pulled her daughter into a fierce hug that made Maya's careful composure crumble completely. I've got you, Susan said into Maya's hair. You're not alone anymore. Maya sobbed against her mother's shoulder while Lily slept peacefully in the hospital bassinet, oblivious to the fact that everything was about to change. When Maya could finally breathe again, Susan pulled back and looked at her daughter with eyes that saw too much. Where's Evan? I don't know. Jake's house, probably. Does he know you're here? That you had emergency surgery? I texted him yesterday. He said okay and went back to working on Jake's car. Susan's jaw tightened, but she didn't say what Maya could see written all over her face. Instead, she turned to the bassinet and looked down at Lily with an expression that softened immediately. Can I hold my granddaughter? Maya nodded, and Susan lifted Lily with the practiced ease of someone who'd raised children. She settled into the chair, cradling the baby and making soft cooing sounds that made Lily's tiny mouth quirk upward in what might have been a smile or might have been gas. She's beautiful, Maya. Absolutely perfect. She deserves better than this. Better than me barely holding it together. Better than a father who can't be bothered to show up. She deserves a mother who's healthy and supported. That's what we're going to make happen. Susan looked up, and her expression was all business. Tell me about this Haven House place. Maya explained what Patricia had told her, the emergency housing, the support services, the bridge to independence. Susan listened without interrupting, her face unreadable. How do you feel about it? Susan asked when Maya finished. Scared, like I'm admitting I failed at everything. Or like you're choosing to save yourself and your daughter before the situation gets worse. Susan shifted Lily to her shoulder and patted the baby's back with gentle rhythm. Your father and I, we stayed together way longer than we should have. You remember those last few years before the divorce? Maya remembered. The fighting, the tension so thick you could feel it the moment you walked in the house, the way her father would disappear for days and her mother would pretend everything was fine. She'd been 12 when they finally split, and her overwhelming emotion had been relief. I stayed because I thought that's what you were supposed to do, Susan continued. Because I thought a bad marriage was better than being alone. But you know what I learned? Being alone is so much better than being with someone who makes you feel alone while they're standing right next to you. How did you finally leave? I woke up one morning and realized I was teaching you that this was normal, that this was what relationships look like, and I couldn't do that to you. Susan's voice was thick with old regret. I should have left sooner, should have been braver. But I'm not going to watch you make the same mistake I did, not when there's help available. Dr. Chen arrived an hour later to discharge Maya. She reviewed the instructions, iron supplements for anemia, follow-up appointment in 2 weeks, warning signs to watch for that might indicate continued hemorrhaging. She also handed Maya a prescription for antidepressants. I know there's stigma around these medications, Dr. Chen said, but postpartum depression is a medical condition, not a character flaw. These can help level out your brain chemistry while you're getting other support in place. Maya took the prescription without arguing. She was past pride now, past pretending she could tough it out. If medication would help her be a better mother to Lily, she'd take it. Patricia arrived as Dr. Chen was leaving. She had paperwork for Haven House, intake forms, consent documents, program guidelines. Susan read through everything with lawyer-like precision, asking questions about visiting policies and security measures and what resources would be available. The facility is secure, Patricia explained. Residents and their children only, plus pre-approved visitors during designated hours. There's childcare available from 7 to 7 so mothers can work or attend classes. Meals are communal in the dining hall, individual rooms with shared bathrooms on each floor. What about Evan? Maya asked. Can he visit? Susan and Patricia exchanged a look that Maya couldn't quite read. Visitors need to be approved, Patricia said carefully. Given that you're entering the program due to lack of support at home, we'll need to assess whether contact with Evan is in your best interest. You mean you don't think I should see him? I mean, you need time and space to focus on your recovery and your daughter without the stress of managing a relationship that's been contributing to your crisis. Patricia's voice was gentle but firm. You don't have to cut him off permanently, but for the first few weeks at Haven House, we strongly recommend minimal outside contact so you can concentrate on stabilizing. Maya thought about Evan's text from yesterday, about his absence from her labor, from the hospital, from every moment that mattered, about coming home to find him sleeping while she struggled alone, about the complete inability to see her as anything other than an inconvenience. Okay, Maya said, no contact for now. I think that's wise, Susan added, still holding Lily. Give yourself room to breathe. Getting Maya discharged took another 2 hours, more paperwork, final checks, a wheelchair ride to Susan's car despite Maya's insistence she could walk. They drove to the apartment to pack Maya's things, and Susan's expression when she saw the space spoke volumes. The dishes still piled in the sink, Evan's clothes everywhere, the empty corner where a nursery should have been. How long have you been living like this? Susan asked quietly. A while. Evan wasn't there, which was both a relief and somehow made everything worse. Maya packed quickly, clothes for her and Lily, toiletries, the few baby items she'd managed to accumulate. Everything fit in 2 bags. 2 years of living with Evan reduced to 2 duffel bags because almost nothing in the apartment actually belonged to her. She left a note on the kitchen counter. Evan, I'm leaving. I need help you can't or won't give. I'll contact you when I'm ready. Take care of yourself. Maya short, clean. No blame or anger or desperate explanations, just facts. Susan read the note over Maya's shoulder and nodded approval. Let's go. Haven House was located in a converted elementary school on the edge of the city. The building was old but well maintained, 3 stories of red brick with tall windows and a playground visible in the back. A sign near the entrance read, Haven House, supporting women and children in transition. Inside the administrative office was bright and organized. A woman in her 40s with kind eyes and natural hair pulled back in a twist greeted them warmly. Her name tag read Denise, Program Director. You must be Maya. Welcome to Haven House. Denise shook Maya's hand and smiled at Susan and Lily. Let's get you settled in. I'll show you around and answer any questions. The tour revealed a space that was institutional, but trying hard not to be. The communal dining room had tables decorated with plastic flowers. The playroom was full of donated toys. The common area had a TV, bookshelves, and comfortable couches. Women of various ages moved through the spaces, some with infants like Lily, others with toddlers or school-aged children. A few looked up as Maya passed, offering tentative smiles or nods of recognition. Maya's room was on the 2nd floor, small but clean, with a twin bed, a desk, and a donated crib already set up. The window looked out over the playground. Bathroom down the hall, shared with 3 other rooms. It wasn't home, but it was safe. That had to be enough. Dinner's at 6 in the dining hall, Denise explained. Breakfast at 7:30, lunch at noon. We ask that everyone helps with meal prep and cleanup on a rotating schedule. Childcare is available if you need to attend appointments or classes. Just sign up at least a day in advance. We have a parenting support group that meets Tuesday evenings and a general support group Thursday evenings. Attendance at 1 group per week is required. What if I can't make it? Maya asked. What if Lily's fussy or I'm not feeling well? We work with you. This isn't a punishment. We want to help you succeed. Denise's smile was genuine. Most of the women here felt exactly how you're feeling right now. Scared, overwhelmed, like they failed somehow by needing help. But you're going to see pretty quickly that asking for help is actually the bravest thing you could do. After Denise left, Susan helped Maya unpack the few belongings they'd brought. Lily woke up hungry, and Maya nursed her while sitting on the narrow bed, looking around the small room that was now their home. I can stay a few days, Susan said. Help you get settled. You don't have to. You've already driven all night. I know I don't have to. I want to. Susan sat beside Maya and gently touched Lily's soft hair. I wasn't there for you when you needed me these past few months. Let me be here now. Maya leaned against her mother's shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of her presence. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't carrying everything alone. That small shift, knowing someone else was sharing the weight, made breathing feel possible again. That evening, Susan went to dinner in the communal hall while Maya stayed in the room with Lily. She wasn't ready to face other people yet, wasn't ready for small talk or questions about how she'd ended up here. But Susan brought back a plate of food, baked chicken, green beans, mashed potatoes, real food that someone else had cooked. Maya ate every bite, too hungry to care that it was cafeteria style and lukewarm. Her phone buzzed around 8. Evan, got your note. Seriously? You're just leaving? Not even going to talk about it? Maya stared at the message. Part of her wanted to respond, wanted to explain and justify and make him understand. But a larger part, the part that was learning to listen to her own exhaustion, knew there was nothing to explain. She told Evan what she needed 100 times. He'd chosen not to hear her. She put the phone on silent and set it face down on the desk. Over the next few days, Susan proved invaluable. She took night shifts with Lily so Maya could sleep for more than 90 minutes at a time. She went to the pharmacy to fill Maya's prescriptions. She attended a meeting with Patricia and Denise to discuss Maya's goals and timeline for getting back on her feet. And she sat with Maya during the moments when panic threatened to overwhelm everything, when the reality of leaving Evan, of living in a shelter, of starting over with an infant felt too enormous to survive. "You're going to be okay," Susan would say during those moments. "Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, I promise." Maya wanted to believe her, tried to believe her, but belief felt like a luxury when everything was so uncertain. On Thursday evening, Susan insisted Maya attend the support group, even though the thought of sitting with strangers and sharing her story made Maya want to hide in her room. But attendance was required, and Maya was trying to follow the program rules even when they felt impossible. The support group met in a small conference room on the first floor. 8 women sat in a circle, varying ages, varying circumstances, united by the fact that they'd all ended up at Haven House. A woman named Christine facilitated, warm and professional in a way that reminded Maya of Patricia. "We have a new member tonight," Christine said once everyone was settled. "Maya, do you want to introduce yourself?" Maya's throat felt tight. "I'm Maya. I have a 2-week-old daughter named Lily. I'm here because I couldn't do it alone anymore." "That's very honest," Christine said. "What made you realize you needed help?" "I passed out while taking care of my baby. Ended up back in the hospital for emergency surgery. A social worker told me about this place." Maya paused, then added, "My boyfriend, Lily's father, he wasn't helping at all, and I just kept trying to make it work until my body literally gave out." Several women nodded with recognition. One, a young woman about Maya's age with a toddler asleep on her lap, spoke up. "That's how I got here too. Kept thinking he'd change. Kept thinking I could do enough for both of us. Then one day I looked at my son and realized I was teaching him that this was normal, that it was okay for men to check out and women to just deal with it." "Exactly," another woman said. She was older, maybe 40, with tired eyes. "I stayed for 12 years. 12 years of him doing the bare minimum while I did everything else. Know what finally got me to leave? My daughter started apologizing every time she needed something. 8 years old, and she already learned that having needs was a burden. That's when I knew I had to go." The stories poured out, each one different in details but similar in theme. Women who'd stayed too long, women who'd given too much, women who'd finally chosen themselves and their children over relationships that were slowly destroying them. Maya listened and felt something unknot in her chest, the terrible isolation that came from thinking she was the only one who'd failed at making things work. "What's the hardest part?" Christine asked Maya gently. "Feeling like I failed. Like if I'd just been stronger or more patient or better, somehow I could have made it work." "That's not failure," the older woman said. "That's survival. You didn't fail by leaving. You failed every time you stayed when you knew you should go. And now you're correcting that. That takes more strength than staying ever did." After the group ended, several women approached Maya. They offered advice about navigating Haven House, told her which donated baby clothes were in the best condition, warned her that the hot water in the second-floor bathrooms ran out quickly, so shower early. Small kindnesses that came from understanding what it felt like to start over with nothing. Maya went back to her room feeling lighter than she had in weeks. Susan was there with Lily, who'd been fed and changed and was sleeping peacefully in the donated crib. Susan took one look at Maya's face and smiled. "Good group?" "Yeah, it helped. Hearing that other people went through the same thing." Maya sat on the bed and watched her daughter sleep. "How much longer can you stay?" "I need to head back Sunday, but I'm only 3 hours away. I can come visit whenever you need me." "Thank you for coming, for not judging me." "Oh, I'm judging someone," Susan said. "Just not you. I'm judging that boy who couldn't be bothered to show up when his child was born. But you? You're doing exactly what you need to do." Maya's phone had been buzzing periodically with messages from Evan. She'd ignored them all, but curiosity finally got the better of her. She opened the messages and read through them chronologically. "This is ridiculous. You're overreacting. Jake says you're being dramatic. All new parents are tired. Fine, stay wherever you are. See if I care. You can't just take my daughter and disappear. That's probably illegal. I talked to my buddy who knows about custody stuff. You better bring Lily back. Maya, answer your phone. We need to talk about this." The messages swung between anger, manipulation, and half-hearted attempts at reconciliation. Maya read them with growing clarity. This was who Evan was. Someone who cared more about being right than about whether she and Lily were okay. someone who viewed her leaving as a personal offense rather than a desperate act of survival. She showed the messages to Susan, who read them with a deepening frown. He's trying to scare you, making threats about custody without actually saying he wants to be involved in parenting. Classic control tactic. What should I do? Nothing. You're in a domestic violence shelter. Evan wasn't violent. Neglect is a form of abuse, Maya. You told him you were having a medical emergency and he didn't come. That's not a safe partner. Susan handed the phone back. Patricia can help you figure out the legal stuff if Evan actually follows through on his threats. But my guess is he won't. Men like him talk big, but fold the moment it requires actual effort. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to defend Evan somehow. But the truth was Susan was right. Evan's messages were all posturing, no substance. He didn't want to fight for custody of Lily. He wanted Maya to feel guilty enough to come back and resume taking care of everything while he continued doing nothing. She typed out a single response. Lily and I are safe. I need space. I'll contact you when I'm ready to discuss next steps. Then she blocked his number. The action felt both terrifying and liberating. She'd just cut off the only direct communication with Lily's father, but she'd also protected herself from the constant barrage of manipulation disguised as concern. Sometimes the healthy choice was also the scary one. Susan left Sunday morning with promises to call every day and visit again soon. Maya walked her mother out to the car. Lily bundled against the cold February wind and felt the loss of that steady presence like a physical ache. You can do this, Susan said, hugging Maya and Lily together. You're stronger than you think. I don't feel strong. Nobody does. That's the secret. We're all just faking it and hoping we don't fall apart. Susan kissed Lily's forehead and then Maya's. Call me anytime, day or night. I mean it. After Susan drove away, Maya went back inside Haven House and felt the weight of true independence settle over her. No mother to buffer the hard parts, no partner to share the responsibility. Just Maya and Lily figuring it out together. The first week alone was brutal. Maya struggled with the routine, with the communal living, with the constant low-level anxiety that came from being surrounded by strangers. But slowly, incrementally, things started to feel less impossible. She learned the rhythms of Haven House, figured out which women were friendly and which preferred to keep to themselves. Started attending the parenting classes that taught practical skills like sleep training and introducing solid foods months down the line. The antidepressants helped. Not immediately, Dr. Chen had warned her it would take a few weeks to feel the full effect, but gradually Maya noticed she could breathe a little easier. The terrible, crushing weight that had been sitting on her chest since Lily's birth began to lift. 2 weeks into her stay at Haven House, Maya received an unexpected visitor. She was in her room nursing Lily when Denise knocked on the door and said someone was asking for her at the front desk. Maya's first thought was Evan, and panic flooded her system. But Denise's expression was calm. It's a Dr. Ward from City Hospital. Says he's following up on your case. Maya's heart skipped for an entirely different reason. She carefully transferred Lily to the crib and made her way downstairs, suddenly conscious of her appearance. Unwashed hair pulled into a messy bun, stained sweatpants, exhaustion probably written all over her face. Caleb Ward stood in the lobby looking exactly as he had on the sidewalk 3 weeks ago. Worn jeans, dark jacket, that same quiet intensity in his eyes. He had a small bag in his hand and stood slightly apart from everything, like he wasn't quite sure he should be there. Hi, Maya said, suddenly shy. I didn't expect to see you. I wanted to check in. The nurses mentioned you'd left the hospital and Patricia told me you'd come here. He held up the bag. I brought some things. Formula samples, diapers, a few other basics. Figured you could use them. Maya took the bag, throat tight with emotion. Thank you. You didn't have to do that. I know. Caleb's expression was carefully neutral, but something in his eyes suggested he understood more than he was saying. How are you doing? How's Lily? We're okay. Better than we were. This place is helping. Good. That's good. He looked around the lobby, taking in the worn furniture and institutional walls with the same assessing gaze he'd used when checking her vitals on the sidewalk. Are you getting enough support? Do you need anything? The question was simple, but the fact that he'd driven across the city to ask it meant everything. This man who'd knelt beside her when she collapsed, who'd stayed through her labor, who'd left resources and now brought supplies, he kept showing up. Not because he had to, but because he'd chosen to care. "I'm getting help," Maya said. "Finally. I should have done this sooner." "You did it when you were ready. That's what matters." Caleb paused, then added, "I put my number in with the supplies. If you ever need anything, medical advice, resources, or just someone to talk to, you can call." Maya felt tears prick her eyes. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know me." Caleb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried weight. "Because I know what it's like to raise a kid alone and have nobody give a damn whether you survive it. If I can make it a little easier for someone else, that's worth the effort." He left before Maya could respond, disappearing through Haven House's front door as quietly as he'd stayed through her labor. Maya stood holding the bag of supplies and realized she was crying, not from sadness or fear, but from the overwhelming recognition that kindness existed, that there were people in the world who saw suffering and chose to help rather than walk away. That night, lying in the narrow bed with Lily asleep in the crib beside her, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in months. Not happiness exactly, and not security, but possibility. The faint, fragile sense that maybe, just maybe, she could build a life worth living. That she could be the mother Lily deserved, not because she was perfect, but because she'd chosen to keep trying even when everything felt impossible. It wouldn't be easy. The road ahead was long and uncertain, full of challenges Maya couldn't yet see. But for the first time since she'd collapsed on that frozen sidewalk, Maya believed she might actually make it through. And that belief, small and tentative as it was, felt like the beginning of something worth fighting for. The call came on a Tuesday evening, 6 weeks after Maya had moved into Haven House. She was in the communal playroom watching Lily practice tummy time on a donated mat when her phone rang with a number she didn't recognize. Maya almost didn't answer. She'd learned to be cautious about unknown calls, but something made her pick up. "Maya Brooks?" The voice was male, official sounding. "Yes?" "This is Detective Morrison with the City Police Department. I'm calling about Evan Miller. He's listed you as an emergency contact." Maya's stomach dropped. "What happened? Is he okay?" "He's in custody. Got picked up last night for a DUI. Third offense. He's looking at jail time." The detective's voice was matter-of-fact. "He asked us to call you about retrieving some personal belongings from his vehicle before it gets impounded." Maya sat down heavily on one of the small plastic chairs scattered around the playroom. We're not together anymore." "That's what he said. But he doesn't have anyone else to call. If you don't want the stuff, that's fine. Just thought I'd reach out." After the detective hung up, Maya sat staring at her phone while Lily babbled happily on the mat. Evan was in jail, facing real consequences for once in his life. And his first instinct had been to call her, not because he cared about her, but because she was the only person who might actually show up. Maya thought about the old version of herself, the one who'd existed 6 weeks ago. That Maya would have rushed to help him, would have made excuses, posted bail if she could afford it, taken on the burden of fixing his problems because that's what she'd always done. But this Maya, the one who'd spent 6 weeks learning to set boundaries and value herself, felt only a distant sadness for the man who'd never learned to take responsibility for anything. She called Susan that evening and told her about Evan's arrest. "How do you feel?" her mother asked. "I don't know. Not surprised exactly. He'd been drinking more and more before I left. I just didn't realize it had gotten that bad." "That's not your fault, and it's not your responsibility to fix." "I know, it's just, Lily's father is going to prison. How do I explain that to her someday?" "The same way you explain why you left him. Honestly. Age appropriately. With the understanding that his choices aren't a reflection on her worth." Susan paused. "You did the right thing getting out when you did, sweetheart. Can you imagine if you'd still been there? If you'd been in the car with him?" Maya couldn't imagine it because she didn't want to. The thought of Lily being in danger because of Evan's recklessness made her feel physically ill. She'd saved her daughter by leaving, even if it hadn't felt like salvation at the time. That night, Maya lay in bed thinking about the last 2 months. How she'd gone from a woman collapsing on a sidewalk to someone who could hear about her ex getting arrested and not immediately try to rescue him. The distance between those two versions of herself felt enormous. not just in time, but in fundamental understanding of who she was and what she deserved. Haven House had given her that distance, the structure, the support groups, the other women who shared their stories, and made Maya realize she wasn't uniquely broken. Christine, the group facilitator, had said something in last week's session that stuck with Maya. You can't love someone into being who they're supposed to be. You can only love yourself enough to stop accepting less than you deserve. Maya had spent months trying to love Evan into being a better partner, a better father. She'd made excuses, lowered her standards, convinced herself that her expectations were too high. But the truth was simpler and harder than that. Evan was who he was, and no amount of patience or hope would change that. The only person Maya could change was herself. Over the next few weeks, Maya threw herself into the Haven House programs with new determination. She attended every parenting class, signed up for the job readiness workshops, and started meeting with a counselor who specialized in helping young mothers develop independence plans. The counselor's name was Dr. Patel, and she was straightforward in a way Maya appreciated. "What do you want your life to look like a year from now?" Dr. Patel asked during one session. Maya had to think about it. For so long, her future had been tied to Evan. What he wanted, what he was willing to do, what compromises she'd need to make. Planning a future that was entirely her own felt strange and thrilling. "I want my own apartment," Maya said slowly. "Nothing fancy, just a safe place for me and Lily. I want a job that pays enough for childcare and rent, and I want to finish my degree." "You were in college before?" "Community college. I was studying early childhood education before I got pregnant and had to drop out." Maya had loved those classes, loved learning about child development and educational theory. "I always thought I'd work with kids someday. Be a teacher, maybe." "That's still possible. It'll take time, but it's possible." Dr. Patel made notes. "Let's talk about immediate steps. What do you need to make any of this happen?" They broke it down into manageable pieces. First, Maya needed a job. The employment coordinator at Haven House helped her update her resume and practice interview skills. Within 2 weeks, Maya had 3 interviews lined up, 2 at childcare centers and 1 at a preschool. The preschool interview went better than Maya expected. The director, a woman named Janet with kind eyes and 20 years of experience, seemed more interested in Maya's natural way with children than her lack of formal credentials. "We need someone for our infant room," Janet explained. "It's assistant teacher position, but there's room for growth. You'd be working with babies 6 weeks to 18 months. "I'd love that," Maya said honestly. "I'm good with babies." "I can tell. You've got the right energy." Janet glanced at Maya's resume again. "It says here you have a 2-month-old daughter?" "Yes, Lily." "And you're currently in transitional housing?" Janet's tone was neutral, but Maya heard the unasked question. "I left an unsupportive relationship. I'm at Haven House working on getting back on my feet." Maya made herself hold Janet's gaze. "I'm reliable. I show up and I work hard. I just need someone to give me a chance." Janet was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. "I like honesty. Can you start Monday?" Maya wanted to cry with relief. Yes, absolutely yes. The job meant structure, income, and purpose beyond just surviving day to day. It also meant putting Lily in the Haven House childcare during work hours, which Maya struggled with emotionally even though she knew it was necessary. The first morning she dropped Lily off, she stood outside the childcare room fighting tears while a patient staff member reassured her that Lily would be fine. "Every mother feels this way," the woman said gently. "But you're doing the right thing. You're building a future for both of you." Work at the preschool turned out to be exactly what Maya needed. The routine, the purpose, the satisfaction of caring for other people's children while knowing she was also providing for her own. It all helped ground her in ways she hadn't expected. The other teachers were welcoming, and Janet proved to be a supportive boss who understood that single mothers sometimes needed flexibility. Maya fell into a rhythm. Wake up at 6, feed and dress Lily, drop her at childcare by 7:30, work until 4, pick up Lily, attend support group or parenting class in the evening, fall into bed exhausted by 9. It was demanding, but it was purposeful. For the first time in months, Maya felt like she was moving forward instead of just surviving. 2 months into her job at the preschool, Maya received a letter from Evan's public defender. He was being sentenced to 18 months for the DUI, with possibility of parole after 12. The letter asked if Maya wanted to make a victim impact statement or discuss custody arrangements for Lily. Maya read the letter twice, then filed it away without responding. She wasn't a victim of Evan's drunk driving. He'd been alone in the car. And as for custody, Evan had never expressed any real interest in being Lily's father when he was free. She couldn't imagine he'd suddenly develop parental instincts from prison. Still, the letter made her think about the future. What happened when Evan got out? Would he want to be part of Lily's life? Did Maya have an obligation to facilitate that relationship, even though he'd been completely absent? She brought it up in her next counseling session with Dr. Patel. You're not obligated to maintain a relationship with someone who's demonstrated they can't be a safe, reliable presence in your child's life, Dr. Patel said. If Evan wants to be involved with Lily, he needs to prove he's done the work to become someone worthy of that role. Recovery, stability, consistent effort over time. You don't owe him access to your daughter based on biology alone. But doesn't Lily deserve to know her father? Lily deserves to have adults in her life who show up for her, who prioritize her well-being, who model healthy relationships and responsibility. If Evan can become that person, great. If he can't, then your job is to protect her from the damage that comes from inconsistent, unreliable parenting. The clarity helped. Maya wasn't punishing Evan by keeping distance. She was protecting Lily. There was a difference. 4 months into living at Haven House, Maya had saved enough money for a security deposit on an apartment. Patricia helped her navigate the application process, and by early June, Maya and Lily moved into a small one-bedroom in a safe neighborhood with good schools and a park within walking distance. The apartment was tiny, barely 600 square feet, but it was theirs. Maya spent her first night there sitting on the donated couch while Lily slept in the crib they'd gotten from Haven House, feeling a sense of accomplishment that brought tears to her eyes. She'd done this, built this life from nothing, created a safe home for her daughter through sheer determination and willingness to accept help when she needed it. Susan visited the following weekend and brought housewarming gifts, dishes, towels, a small kitchen table. They assembled furniture and cooked dinner together while Lily rolled around on a blanket on the floor, giggling at nothing and everything. I'm proud of you, Susan said while they were washing dishes after dinner. You've come so far. I had help, a lot of help. But you did the work. You made the hard choices. Nobody could do that for you. Susan dried a plate and set it carefully in the cabinet. Have you heard from Evan? No, and I don't expect to. Maya had made peace with Evan's absence. Lily doesn't need a father who's only around when it's convenient. She's better off with people who actually show up. As if summoned by the conversation, there was a knock at the door. Maya dried her hands and went to answer it, expecting a neighbor or maybe the building superintendent. Instead, she found Caleb Ward standing in the hallway holding a small potted plant. Hi, he said, looking almost sheepish. I heard through Patricia that you'd moved. Thought I'd stop by and see how you're settling in. Maya was suddenly conscious of her appearance. Old jeans and a t-shirt stained with baby food, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. But Caleb's expression held only genuine interest, no judgment. Come in, Maya said, stepping aside. Please. Caleb entered the small apartment and looked around with that same careful assessment he brought to everything. Susan appeared from the kitchen and Maya made introductions. This is Dr. Ward, Caleb. He's the one who helped me when I went into labor. The one who stayed, Susan said, shaking his hand with a firmness that suggested she was evaluating him. Thank you for that. For all of it. Just doing what needed doing, Caleb said. He held out the plant to Maya. Basil. Figured you might like something that's useful and hard to kill. Maya took the plant, touched by the thoughtfulness. Thank you. Would you like some coffee? We're just cleaning up from dinner. I don't want to intrude. You're not, Susan said firmly. Sit. I'll make coffee. Caleb sat on the donated couch while Maya settled into the armchair with Lily. The baby was 5 months old now, all rolls and smiles, with Maya's eyes and a personality that was becoming more defined every day. She reached for Caleb with chubby hands, and he let her grip his finger with surprising ease. She's gotten big, Caleb observed. She's perfect, Maya said, because it was true. Despite everything, the traumatic birth, the postpartum crisis, the complete upheaval of their lives, Lily was thriving, happy and healthy, and completely unaware of how close they'd come to disaster. Susan brought coffee and then excused herself to Lily's room, giving them privacy with a knowing look that made Maya blush. When they were alone, Caleb cleared his throat. I wanted to apologize for dropping by unannounced. I probably should have called first. I'm glad you came. I never properly thanked you for everything you did. The resources you left at the hospital, the supplies you brought to Haven House. You didn't have to do any of that. I know what it's like, Caleb said quietly, to be struggling and have everyone act like you're invisible. If I can prevent one person from feeling that alone, it's worth the effort. There was weight in his words, old pain that Maya recognized. You said you raised a kid alone. Can I ask what happened? Caleb was quiet for a long moment, and Maya thought he might deflect. But then he spoke, his voice steady but carrying emotion beneath the surface. My daughter's mother left when Emma was 3 months old. Said she wasn't ready to be a parent, that motherhood wasn't what she thought it would be. She signed away her rights and disappeared. He paused. I was a resident at the time, working 80-hour weeks, barely sleeping, trying to learn how to be a doctor while raising an infant alone. It nearly broke me. How did you survive it? Barely. I had a neighbor who helped sometimes, daycare that stayed open late, and a lot of people who looked right through me like I didn't exist when I asked for help. Caleb looked at Maya directly. That's why I stopped when you collapsed, because I remember what it felt like to be invisible. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. Where's Emma now? College, pre-med, ironically enough. She's 20. Caleb smiled, and it transformed his face. Best thing I ever did was keep showing up for her even when I wanted to quit. She turned out better than I deserved. I doubt that. She probably turned out exactly as well as she did because you showed up. They talked for another hour, about parenting, about the challenges of single parenthood, about the way trauma changed you and the slow work of healing. Caleb was easy to talk to once he relaxed, his clinical exterior melting to reveal someone thoughtful and genuinely interested in hearing about Maya's life. He asked about her job at the preschool, her plans for finishing her degree, how she was managing the transition from Haven House to independent living. It's hard, Maya admitted, but good hard. Like I'm actually building something instead of just surviving. That's exactly what you're doing. Caleb checked his watch and stood reluctantly. I should go. I'm on shift in the morning. Maya walked him to the door. Thank you for coming, for checking in. It means more than you probably realize. I'm glad you're doing okay. Caleb hesitated, then pulled a card from his wallet. This is my personal number. Not for medical emergencies. You should call 911 for those. But if you ever need anything else, advice, resources, or just someone who gets it, call. Maya took the card and felt something warm unfold in her chest. Not romantic attraction exactly, though Caleb was objectively attractive in a quiet, understated way. More like recognition. The sense of meeting someone who understood the particular weight she carried because he'd carried something similar. I will, Maya said. And Caleb? Thank you for not walking away. You saved yourself, Caleb said, echoing what he'd told the nurses months ago. I just didn't leave when I could have. After he left, Susan emerged from the bedroom with Lily and a knowing smile. He seems nice. He is nice, that's all. I didn't say anything. Susan's smile widened. But when you're ready for it to be more than that, he seems like the kind of man who'd be worth the risk. Maya didn't respond, but she thought about it that night after Susan left and Lily was asleep in her crib. She thought about the difference between Evan, who'd walked away from every hard moment, and Caleb, who seemed incapable of turning away from suffering even when it wasn't his responsibility. She thought about what she wanted in a partner if she ever chose to try again. Stability. Presence. Someone who showed up not just when it was easy, but especially when it was hard. But that was future thinking. Right now, Maya needed to focus on building her own strength, her own independence. Lily needed a mother who was whole, not someone looking for another person to complete her. Still, having Caleb's number felt like possibility, like a door left open just enough to let light through. The summer passed in a blur of work and mommy and me classes, and slowly building a life that felt sustainable. Maya reconnected with a few old friends who drifted away during her relationship with Evan. She started taking one online class toward finishing her degree. She learned to cook simple meals and budget carefully and find joy in small things. Lily's first tooth, a perfect afternoon at the park, the satisfaction of paying bills on time. Evan got out of jail in November. Maya found out through a mutual acquaintance who thought she should know. He was living with Jake again, working part-time at a warehouse, supposedly attending AA meetings as part of his parole. The acquaintance seemed to think Maya should reach out, give him a chance to be part of Lily's life. Maya thought about it for approximately 30 seconds before deciding against it. Evan knew where she worked. He could reach out if he wanted to be involved. But weeks passed with no contact, and Maya realized he didn't want to be a father. He just didn't want to be seen as a deadbeat. There was a difference. She was okay with his absence, more than okay. Lily was 10 months old now, crawling everywhere and pulling herself up on furniture. She was surrounded by love. Maya, Susan, the friends Maya had rebuilt relationships with, even some of the women from Haven House who'd become genuine friends. Lily didn't need a father who showed up out of obligation. She needed people who chose to be in her life. On Lily's first birthday, Maya threw a small party at her apartment. Susan came down from Ohio. A few co-workers from the preschool stopped by. Christine from Haven House brought cupcakes. And Caleb showed up with a children's book about a little girl who was brave enough to ask for help when she needed it. For when she's older, Caleb said, handing Maya the book. Thought the message might resonate. It's perfect, Maya said, and meant it. She'd seen Caleb a handful of times over the past several months. Always casual, always friendly, nothing that crossed the line into something more. But there was an ease between them now, a comfort that came from shared understanding. They texted occasionally, usually about parenting challenges or to share something funny their kids had done. It was friendship, pure and simple. Except Maya was starting to realize she wanted it to be more than friendship. Not urgently, not in a way that made her anxious or uncertain. Just a quiet recognition that Caleb was someone worth taking a risk on when she was ready. After the party, after everyone had left and Lily was asleep with frosting still smudged on her cheek, Maya sat on her couch and looked around her small apartment. The donated furniture, the toys scattered across the floor, the photos on the walls documenting Lily's first year. Evidence of a life rebuilt from absolute nothing. She thought about the woman who'd collapsed on that sidewalk a year ago, desperate and terrified and certain she was going to die alone while strangers walked past. That woman felt like someone else entirely. Someone Maya had compassion for but no longer recognized as herself. This Maya was stronger, not because she didn't need help, but because she'd learned to ask for it. Not because she never felt afraid, but because she felt the fear and kept moving forward anyway. She'd saved herself by making the impossible choice to leave, and in doing so, she'd become someone who could teach her daughter what strength really looked like. Not loud or dramatic, not proving you could do everything alone, just the quiet courage of showing up every day and choosing dignity over comfort, health over familiarity, growth over stagnation. Maya's phone buzzed. A text from Caleb. Thanks for including me today. Lily's lucky to have you as her mom. Maya smiled and typed back. Thank you for coming. For everything, really. I don't think I ever properly told you how much it meant that you stopped that day. That you stayed. His response came quickly. You would have been fine without me. You're stronger than you think. Maybe, but I'm glad I didn't have to be. There was a pause, then another message. Would you want to get coffee sometime? Just the two of us? Maya's heart did something complicated in her chest. She looked at sleeping Lily, at the life they'd built together, at the future that felt wide open with possibility. Then she typed her response. I'd like that. A lot. She didn't know what would happen with Caleb. Didn't know if coffee would lead to something more or if they'd discover they were better as friends than anything else. But for the first time in over a year, Maya felt ready to find out. Ready to let someone in who'd proven he knew how to stay. Not to save her, she'd already saved herself, but to walk beside her. To be present in the hard moments and the good ones. To show her daughter what partnership looked like when it was built on respect and reliability instead of need and desperation. Maya set her phone down and looked out the window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Evan was living his own life. making his own choices, following his own path. She wished him well, genuinely, but she no longer wished he was here. She'd spent months trying to force him into being someone he wasn't, and in doing so, she'd lost sight of who she needed to become. She was grateful for the loss, grateful for the collapse that had shattered her old life and forced her to build something new from the pieces. Grateful for Caleb, who'd shown her that kindness existed and that asking for help wasn't weakness, but wisdom. Grateful for every woman at Haven House who'd shared their stories and made Maya feel less alone. Grateful for Susan, who'd driven through the night and stayed until Maya could stand on her own. Most of all, Maya was grateful for Lily, for the tiny person sleeping peacefully in the next room, oblivious to how close they'd come to disaster. Lily had saved Maya just as much as Maya had saved Lily, had given her a reason to keep fighting when everything felt hopeless, had taught her that love, real love, meant showing up even when you were terrified, even when you didn't know what you were doing, even when it would have been easier to walk away. In the end, that was what mattered. Not the grand gestures or dramatic rescues, just the choice, made over and over again in 1,000 small moments, not to disappear when it mattered most, to stay, even when staying was hard, to believe that you were worth saving, and then to do the work of actually saving yourself. Maya had made that choice, and in making it, she'd discovered something essential. Rescue wasn't about strength. It was about choosing not to vanish when the world expected you to, about believing you deserved to be seen, even when everyone else looked away. She'd stopped being invisible, and in doing so, she'd learned to see herself clearly for the first time. Not as someone who'd failed at keeping a relationship together, but as someone brave enough to walk away from what was destroying her. Not as someone who needed saving, but as someone who'd saved herself and her daughter through sheer determination and willingness to accept help when it was offered. That was the story Maya would tell Lily someday. Not about the father who'd abandoned them or the desperate woman collapsing on a frozen sidewalk, but about the choice to keep living when dying would have been easier. About the strangers who became lifelines, about the slow, hard work of rebuilding a life worth living, and about the man who'd stopped when everyone else walked past, who'd held her hand through the worst pain of her life, and who'd proven that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone isn't saving them. It's simply refusing to leave when you have every reason to walk away. That was the lesson Maya had learned. That was the truth she'd carry forward. And as she sat in her small apartment on her daughter's first birthday, watching the city lights sparkle against the November darkness, Maya finally understood what it meant to be saved. It meant saving yourself. And then, maybe, letting someone else walk beside you on the journey that came after.